Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, and we are back with the Wrestling Republic daily broadcast. And today, it's a two-man show, but I'm joined by the one, the only Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
I'm doing so well. I got my day off yesterday after my little 15-day streak before that. Needed it, feeling refreshed and stoked to be back here on the microphone with you, my friend Ben. This is going to be a fun show.
Oh, it absolutely will be. And I think you might be the only person in the world who we had to encourage to take a day off after your long streak going there. But no, it's a pleasure to have you back today. And man, do we have a big show. We got Melissa in the comments here saying, hey, hello, welcome to the stream.
What's going on, Melissa?
It's gonna be a great one. But right before the show started today, right, we had all the topics ready. And the big news story broke. Fightful Select are reporting that Jay White's New Japan Pro Wrestling contract is about to expire, and he's rumored to be heading to the States. Of course, the rumor is he's going to be having a child soon, or has had a child or something. So it's not, it's not a big surprise that he is heading back to the States. In fact, some people were speculating that he was going to go work Ring of Honor while under contract in New Japan. But it seems like perhaps he's going to WWE or AEW. Who knows? What do you think, Clark?
I mean, it's so funny. A year ago at this time, with all the work that he had done around Forbidden Door and with Adam Cole and everybody, if you'd asked me the same question, if you'd have told me, hey, next year, here's the deal. Jay White's contract's going to expire with New Japan and he's going to the States. I'd have been like, no brainer. AEW, they're going to do the Elite thing, Bullet Club, writes itself, easy money. I think he's going to WWE. I really do. I don't think he's going to, I mean, it's this year now, right? And I don't think he's going to be there quite by Rumble or Chamber, but there's that Raw after Mania is known for its debuts. It's known for its surprises, and that might be a nice time for the Switchblade to make his first appearance. Could go after almost anybody. There's a scenario you could put him in a storyline with Cody Rhodes. You could put him in a storyline with AJ Styles, who I know he's injured right now, but I mean Finn Balor even. There are so many matchups that are exciting, but I have a weird feeling because I also think Jay is kind of on that short list of best guys to never appear in WWE.
Oh, certainly.
And he's not so old now that he's aged himself out completely.
No, not at all. And his style, he can work slowly too. I mean,
right.
I think he's only 30. He's 30 years old. He's perfect age for the main roster.
And so if he were to sign, though, a long-term contract elsewhere, I don't know that he has another shot for the WWE run. And that's another big reason I definitely think I would lean WWE this time around. I also think, and gosh, I really hope they both get back soon because I love both in the ring as performers. O'Reilly and Adam Cole's health situations both being up in the air with their injuries. And given the timing of when the negotiation contract-wise is going to go down, I think that hurts the idea that we could see Jay White make an AEW or sign with them. And if he were to sign, say, a 2 or 3 year AEW deal, again, that kind of rules him out. 33, 34, we're having a different conversation about him having the potential WWE run. I think this is kind of the perfect time, right? The stars aligned, and it's the perfect time for him to make that jump.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, I talk about this nearly every episode at this point. WWE, their ideal age for talent moving to the main roster now is under the age of 30, right? So him coming in at 30 years old, it's perfect. But I mean, I guess the only question will the WWE audience know who he is enough to, put him straight on the main roster? Is he, as well known as AJ Styles was? I don't think so. But is he the only question is he well known enough, for him to be able to make an impression, get a reaction on the main roster? And I personally think that he is probably more well known than some of the NXT talents are who are being called up. So if I'm being completely honest with that argument, as long as they are confident that he can, work the WWE style, I think it's fine. And I've said it for years, right? I've had New Japan fans have had a go at me for years for saying this. He is perfect for WWE. He's literally the perfect performer for WWE. His style and everything, it fits them so perfectly. It fits them more than he fit New Japan, if I'm being completely honest here. And I was a fan of some of his stuff in New Japan. I wasn't a fan of some, other stuff in New Japan. But overall, I think that this could be the best move for him, even if it wasn't for the fact that he wants to move to America.
I agree, and even Ben, to your point about the how well known is he compared to some NXT talent. I think there's some names that they've signed and sent through NXT, and I think NXT's had a lot of great benefits. There's no question, but some of the I don't necessarily know that Shinsuke Nakamura needed to be built in NXT. Sometimes the shock of, I mean, if the commentators can tell the story and you establish yourself as the big name, sometimes not having the scar tissue from maybe some pitfalls that happened in NXT or some bad matches, bad storylines, bad promo work, sometimes avoiding that and going straight to the main roster, I think almost gives you a bit of an advantage in some ways. And I think with Jay White, it would be as much as, are there great matchups in NXT? Of course. And there's a lot of great work in NXT. I would much, if it's my choice, I would much prefer him to skip NXT and go straight to the main roster. Even if the initial reception is that he needs to be introduced to the American audience, I think between Styles and other guys that have had history with him outside of the company too, that you can build that in a way where you know who Jay White is right away. And to your point, his style fits WWE better than it does New Japan. It fits it better than it does AEW.
Oh, yeah,
now,
sure.
I've got a question for you, though.
Yeah.
Got a question for you about Jay White. So they ran into this with the Crossroads with Damian Priest.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do about the Blade Runner and the Sister Abigail? What do you do?
That is... It's a very, very good question.
And they're both pretty moves. They're both, I love it as a finisher for both, but I mean, you can't, it's hard to have both.
I think he's going to adapt it. I think he's going to ever so slightly do something and change it. I don't know what exactly that'll be, but I don't think that he's going to be able to do the Blade Runner, because it is, Bray Wyatt's move, the Sister Abigail, and it's, they market it very well as the Sister Abigail. And I mean, even Uncle Howdy, who we'll get onto in just a bit, even he's, doing it now. So, I mean, I can't for a second think that they'll let him use the Blade Runner in WWE. But then again, who knows? It's a new era now. We haven't actually seen this.
Well, have you noticed they've been letting Priest use the, they called it Lights Out for a bit, but the Reckoning, I believe, is what they're calling it now again. They've been letting him use it again. He more of it as a signature, not as the finish like he used to.
Yeah.
He's been using the Razor's Edge more type as a finish, and I think a chokeslam once actually, even I saw him do that, or that sit out one. It's got the, I forget what the name is of it, but it would be interesting to see him both be able to use it, because I also think they deliver it a little bit differently. Like the Bray Wyatt, does the sort of milks it, and then it's the violence. Jay, the way he sets it up, it kind of almost is more out of nowhere. It's faster.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Almost the way the zigzag is. And I'm wondering if they can kind of just blend it enough, and the fact that their name's different, they might just turn a blind eye on that one and let them, the fact that they're not called the same thing.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have them on the same show if they are both using the same
that's
move.
the hardest part, especially not back to back or like against each other. That's where it gets muddy.
I mean, can we just not put Jay White against him, Bray Wyatt, full stop? But
I agree.
But I mean, nobody comes out of feuding with Bray Wyatt any better. Somebody's speculating here. WWE New Japan, the new Forbidden Door. So some people are speculating, right? The Carl Anderson deal. I say some people. Kobe actually, producer Kobe sent us this message before we went on air, and he speculated, maybe New Japan. Because this is a big deal, which I actually missed out. Jay White in a loser leaves Japan match on February 11th. And we discussed this a few days ago on the podcast against Hikuleo. And at the time, we thought that maybe Hikuleo was going to lose and join WWE. And apparently, they're still interested in him. So who knows? Maybe both of them will show up in WWE in the near future. But maybe there's a double pinfall and they both leave. But the thing is, that would mean that before, at the earliest February 11th, he can't, work WWE. So by that, that's why Clark was speculating earlier, perhaps the Raw after Mania. I think that'd be a very, very sensible time for him to debut. But the other thing, what producer Kobe was suggesting was perhaps with the Carl Anderson deal, WWE said, yeah, sure, you can have Carl Anderson now, but we want Jay White for the Rumble. Now, if I'm being completely honest here, I do not think that New Japan would have said okay to that, because the entire thing is it's a loser leaves Japan match. It's on the big show for them, New Beginnings. I think it's the co-main event of the final night of the tour. And not one second can I actually see them being like, oh yeah, he can go, because it'll spoil the match. You know he's losing unless you do Hikuleo then loses and then they both go, but that would just bury their own promotion. So I personally wouldn't do that. So I personally cannot see there being a relationship here between WWE and New Japan. New Japan and AEW's relationship is continuing. In fact, it's going to get stronger. Pun intended, because New Japan's strong is apparently ending, according to Hiroshi Tanahashi. And that could mean that a lot of the strong talents could be heading over to Ring of Honor, because Tony Khan has already confirmed that New Japan will have an influence on the new ROH TV deal coming soon. Jacob in the comments here is saying minute silence for Soul as he's not here today.
Oh.
Soul's very busy today, but he'll be back soon. Don't you worry.
By the way, I want to shout out the first comment was my buddy Carter. He's going to AEW with me tomorrow. It's gonna be a blast.
Oh, nice.
Great comment. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's that'll be certainly a good show for you tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to hearing your insights on Thursday about it.
It'll be fun.
Melissa in the comments is asking us when we both got into WWE. I got into WWE in 2009, I think it was. And it was a feud between Batista, Rey Mysterio, and then Rey Mysterio kind of got involved with The Undertaker heading into the Royal Rumble as well. And then at this similar time, Shawn Michaels on Raw, I was very into his storylines, and then he got into the storyline with Taker then literally just a couple months after. And yeah, those were the two big storylines which got me into wrestling. And then I was also a big fan of I say big fan. I was not a fan of the Straight Edge Society when they used to when they used to shave people's heads. I used to think I cannot go to a WWE show. They're going to shave my head.
It is scary.
Oh, I was terrified as a child. But what about you, Clark? When did you get into a WWE?
So I'm a bit older, and shockingly, I'm in my 30s. I'm 31, and so I got the most unusual matches on VHS. When I was about 4 or 5 years old. About 4. And Shawn Michaels hooked me in, and then I got to go to WrestleMania 12 in 96, and I was completely hooked. It was I think I've told the story a couple times on the podcast, but I used to during when Raw and Nitro were on at the same time, we'd always have one on upstairs, one on down, and I would record the other, whichever one I wasn't going to watch as intensely that week, on VHS downstairs, and I'd run up and downstairs though during commercial breaks just to check what was happening anyway, and then after school on Tuesday I'd watch whichever, either Raw or Nitro, whichever the one I didn't see the whole show the night before, and I'd use the same VHS tape, so it would kind of record over each other, and every now and again it'd cut out and you'd see like a minute of last week on accident. But yeah, I got into it really, really young, and then kind of carried it all through middle school and high school. And then it's funny, I was a bit of a lapsed fan for a bit in my 20s, and really jumped back in around 18 and 19 when All In kind of started to come about, and I started listening to Busted Up at Radio more and things like that. It's not that I was a fully lapsed fan. I always watched the Rumble and Mania and all the major pay-per-views, but I just wasn't watching week to week the way I did growing up. But I've been fully back now for about 4 years, and it's as good as it's ever been. It really is. Wrestling is as good as it's ever been.
It really is. I mean, it's on fire, and we're about to get into a really short story time here. Jacob, a longtime fan of Wrestling Republic, has commented, throwback to AJ Styles fan back in the day.
Yeah.
For those of you guys who don't know how the Wrestling Republic Instagram page got started, it was originally called WWE Styles Fan, and it was back in 2016. I was in, I think, year 8 in secondary school, and I decided to start an AJ Styles fan page basically, and it wasn't really like a, like as you see now, some of these, for example, a Sasha Banks fan page where they're posting pictures of them constantly. Like it was like a wrestling page, but I just did it as my favorite wrestler at the time was AJ Styles. And then after a couple months, I renamed it Wrestling Republic. But yeah, that's the story of how it started, and I think we actually hit. I think it got up to 5,000 as WWE
Styles fan.
which is crazy as
We've
well.
got a large portion of our audiences that are big Styles fans.
Yeah. He's still, he's the most over thing about the brand. But we'll now get into the next segment. Right, of course, WWE Monday Night Raw was last night, and it was. I was going to say it was a solid show. If I'm being completely honest, it dragged. It dragged a lot. It was actually, I think, one of the worst Triple H shows. But the one thing which it did well was it built the Judgment Day. But we'll get onto that in just a bit. What I want to talk about first is Uncle Howdy and Alexa Bliss. For those of you guys who didn't watch the show, Alexa Bliss, of course, after her heel turn last week, came out, stood on the desk, and basically said that she's in control now. She's got the whole world in her hand. Uncle Howdy, then his music hit. Well, they played the little, glitch video package. Then he came out, and he was just standing on the stage, but he was laughing on the stage as if to say, it's really not in your hand. I'm in control. And honestly, I never thought I'd want to see Dark Alexa back because it sucked last time round. But she's done absolutely nothing of any value since she's gone back to her old character. So now I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Let's see it again. Let's just hope we don't see some, mystical BS. What were your thoughts, Clark?
It's funny. I've been complaining for weeks about how they've continually teased the Alexa stuff, even though, and I'm on the same page as you on at first, I'm like, please just give it a direction. Now that we're here, at least it's something. And the Howdy appearance on Raw, like, thank you. Let's get Howdy on Raw. Let's get Wyatt on Raw. Let's get something more on Raw. Then the same, we get the half of the bloodline that doesn't include Roman, no world title, and the occasional tag team championship appearance. Even the turmoil last night, it was fine, but I'm like, we could have been building the tag team number one contender division for the last 3 weeks with high quality matches between all those teams that were in that tournament, instead of just burying each other in the same gauntlet style that you and I have complained about in the past. Like, it just frustrated me because there's so much talent in that ring. Gable every single week gives you at least 5 to 15 minutes of as good a bell to bell action as anybody on any roster in the world. Chad Gable does. And he just gets overshadowed and buried in that match. Otis was the bigger factor he got more time in the turmoil last night. Sorry, not to change the subject. We're not even talking about that yet. But on the Alexa thing, yeah, they brought Howdy out. I like that. Honestly, if I was writing it myself, I might have gone like Alexa controls Howdy. That might be.
Oh, but that's more the mystical BS.
It's mystical, but not controls. But Alexa, Howdy answers to Alexa, because it doesn't make sense to me that Howdy would be controlling both Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss. You're talking about two of the biggest stars on the roster. Now, if Bray Wyatt was at the mercy of an Uncle Howdy who was also answering to Alexa Bliss, and that's been kind of the whole thing the whole time, okay, I can wrap my head around that. And I'm not saying that they have to over mystify it, but just for chain of command, it doesn't make sense that two former champions would be answering to an Uncle Howdy who we all realistically know is probably Bo Dallas behind a mask.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's, it's a cool character. Don't get me wrong. That's fine. Fine with me. I like the stash. I like the whole thing. And there's a way you can make it really good. They just haven't done anything. And to then lock up two huge names that you could be using on the card to wrestle matches, to have storyline rivalries where, like, I'm not really sure why Bray Wyatt and LA Knight don't like each other, other than that they had like the couple tussles and then the mystical stuff. Like,
in fairness, I don't think Bray Wyatt knows either. I think that's the entire point, that he's confused why LA Knight is such a problem with him, and LA Knight thinks that Bray Wyatt and Uncle Howdy are the same person, and that's that. But in fairness, I think they have made it clear in that storyline that Bray Wyatt had originally had no issue with LA Knight.
No, and I get that part, but at the same time, it's like, so we did all this time to build to Bray's not sure why he's fighting. Like,
That's it's a good point. It's a good point.
You know, and not that I'm a huge Bray Wyatt fan, to be completely honest, right? I love the creativity. Like, I really do dig a lot of the stuff that, especially the Wyatt family work back in the day. Like, goodness gracious, he was amazing. Um, but yeah, it was just, to me, I thought we might see something a little more explosive out of the gates after how great that initial return was.
Yeah.
I thought we might see a little bit more, you know, like, can't stop talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, the way I view this storyline is I think Uncle Howdy isn't controlling or they're not answering to him. What I think he's doing is I think he's essentially, and I don't think there's any magic BS involved here. I think he's very simply getting in their heads. He's, he's just saying things that's bringing out the worst in them, manipulating, and that I have no issue with. If I'm being completely honest, the last few weeks I've had absolutely no issue with this Bray Wyatt storyline. Before that, I did because it was going too slow, and I'm a big Bray Wyatt fan as well. But he started going too slow. The pace is currently going. I have no issue with it at all. And I just hope they will, unveil the rest of the Wyatt Six soon as well, because we now know three of the members. We know Alexa Bliss, Bray Wyatt, and Uncle Howdy.
And I'll
Miz
definitely agree
List.
with you too, because initially I thought it was going way too slow as well. But I may have sounded too even negative on some of the points that I was making there. I definitely do believe that the last few weeks has been a drastic improvement. And if they end up, I'll wholeheartedly admit I'm wrong. If they end up playing it out in a way where I go, dang, that was clever. They got me, right? Which is what I'm hoping for. I don't have exact faith, because there's some other storylines of late where it's just been like they're really close to something and then you don't quite get what you were looking for.
No, I completely get that, to be fair. I mean, it's very easy for this storyline to go wrong. I mean, literally, as soon as they introduce some more Alexa dark magic, right? Unless it's a situation where you could suspend your disbelief, like there might be a logical answer for it. Like, oh, she might have had something to move, something like that, something where there's a proper explanation. Well, there could be an explanation, even if it is slightly far-fetched, I'm fine with. But if it is, oh, she's suddenly now, mind controlling people, that's when I have the issue with it. It sucked before, and it will suck again if they do it.
Okay, it's really funny that you say that too, because I just also forgot you mentioned the being afraid of having your head shaved by the Straight Edge Society. I forgot, when I was a kid, we went to Raw the week after when the Ministry of Darkness, Undertaker just did lightning on the ramp on one of the guys that lit the camera guy on fire. And I'll never forget, as a kid being like, Mom, Dad, am I gonna get struck by lightning at the show? They're like, no, you're fine. You're gonna make it, buddy.
Oh yeah, no, I mean the thing is, even with that, you can explain it. And people said at the time when Alexa was mind reading, they explain it like, oh, well, Undertaker used to use lightning. It's like, well, I mean, you could say, he's paying off somebody in the production truck to, electrocute someone. But even though that is a bit far-fetched, it's still possible. Whereas Alexa controlling someone's mind is not possible, right? And that's why it sucked the first time around. So I really hope they don't do that again. But if they don't do it again and they just, treat her like, a bit more of a dark heel type character, I'm completely fine with this. It adds more layers to a character and she needs it. But yeah, I mean, for those of you guys who don't know this, Bo Dallas was backstage and he was pictured backstage last night at Raw, so it's confirmed he's Uncle Howdy. I mean, he's been pictured at all the airports where SmackDown's been lately, and I mean the only excuse could be, oh, he was there for Liv Morgan. Well, Liv Morgan wasn't on Raw last night, so.
And the size of the character, the beard, there's so much evidence. It's Bo.
Yeah, I don't think they're ever gonna.
Which is awesome, by the way. I'm happy to see Bo back in wrestling. I was afraid that maybe his career might, not continue at one point, and I always thought he was kind of an underrated talent. He had charisma on the mic. He took a pretty tough gimmick with the Bo Leave stuff on the main roster and got it over in a sense, right? Yeah. Not in like a over way, but people did find it funny and entertaining. There's no doubt about it. And that was not an easy gimmick to be saddled with. So to have something even a little bit more threatening for a guy so physically gifted, I think is that in and of itself is definitely a blessing. Because, he was the first NXT champion and he was a legit Build-A-Bell talent in NXT,
I mean, the question is, do you think he's actually going to wrestle? Or do you think he's just going to be like a manager type character? Because he's been wearing the jacket and all stuff like this. It makes him look a lot bigger than he actually is under the jacket.
I think he'll wrestle.
Damn.
I think
I mean, I'm all for it, but I don't know if I can see it yet. But hopefully I'm wrong. But I mean, it'll be obvious it's Bo if they do that. But I fully do not believe that they're going to unmask him as Bo Dallas at any point.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a separate entity. But we just got to wait and see who the final 3 members of the Wyatt Six are now. So that's going to be interesting over the next few months. But we'll move on to the next subject now, and that is Seth Rollins is super over on Monday Night Raw. He is a huge babyface. However, all the rumors suggest, all the speculation suggests that he is facing Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. And this could be a huge issue as you're going to have 2 faces versus each other. So do they need to turn him heel? What do you think, Clark?
To be honest, as much as I'm a huge fan of Seth Rollins' work, I can't even view this current iteration as a true babyface other than that the song is over. Yeah. The chant's over. And
he's praising the fans too. He's praising the fans.
No, he absolutely is. And the mic work lends to him being babyface, but the laugh, the drip, the Joker similarities. I'm not calling him a Joker ripoff. I don't actually believe that to be the case, but there are similar Joker mannerism type manic-ish. The way he does the dance out and the smirk and all of that is not very traditional babyface. Yeah. I'm not saying he's not over as a babyface. I'm just saying he's not a traditional Cody Rhodes, torn pec, rah, right? Like he's not what you'd call, I guess, a white meat babyface, right? Like he's more of a non-traditional anti-hero-ish babyface because there's still that undertone of cockiness, that undertone of even the song and leading the fans in the song, right? Like, it isn't the most face-ish. I think it's logically easy to return him back to being a heel. He's always had an innate ability to do something slimy on TV and make you hate him right away, right from the chair shot in the back with the Shield. Almost anytime Rollins turns, it's a pretty definitive turn. The Monday Night Messiah character was a pretty obvious turn, right? When he does.
In fairness, I don't think he's ever turned heel though when he's super over. Because
it's true. It's true.
This is the issue. If fans, this is my hot take of the day. I think if Cody came in now, I think 60% of the fans would be rooting for Seth Rollins.
But would you argue that he's also been super over as a babyface at a time with a babyface that's as over as Cody?
No, but I still think, though, that the audience will be 60-40. I really do, unless they somehow find a way to get fans to hate him in the next few months.
I don't think so, because I just think Rollins can get slimy enough that he's going to be rooted against. I mean, they had fans chanting for Riddle against him 2 months ago in the Fight Pit, right? That is not that long ago. It's like 8 weeks, and they had the fans chanting for Riddle and rooting hard against Rollins. That was not that long ago. I get the injury helps in a roundabout way, even the way that they did the segment last night, giving sympathy for him, having the crutch. He still left the crutch in the ring and walked out on his own accord. That was not a babyface move. Right? The babyface would need the crutch still because he'd be so injured, I would think, in that scenario psychologically, right? It's hard to have sympathy. I feel like someone that can watch
the same thing.
Well, who knows? That maybe, I don't know. It did seem just odd. Look, I think Seth's as good as anybody in the world. I've never really viewed him as a true babyface, though. Even when he was a babyface, he just wasn't my. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, Numero One Superfly in the comments says, "Is Seth a babyface?" In my opinion, I feel like he's sheer due to being surrounded by those who act far more heelish than himself.
Thank you for picking me up with that one, by the way. That's kind of where I was going, but just way more concise. So that is a great comment. But yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's kind of because Seth, I think at his finest is the dastardly heel, not the cowardly one, which he's done both, right? He's done the cowardly, he's done the dastardly. When Seth is the he'll do anything to screw you right. He'll pull the rug out from under you. He'll stab you right in the back, whatever it is. I think that's when Seth's at his finest. And for him to get back into that for a rivalry with Cody, I don't think is going to be that difficult. I definitely trust Seth Rollins for that type of storytelling. He can do that as well as anybody.
Yeah, no, I do. I do agree with that. I'm just still worried that fans might respect him a bit too much.
Yeah.
But we'll probably find out in due course. But I just worry the fans are going to turn on Cody like they did because you know how much they're hyping up this return because fans turned on him on AEW. They actually did start to slightly turn on him before he got injured. Then Hell in the Cell, of course, when he showed his his torn and all that. He was instantly over as hell, but he was over as anything. And then that, of course, he was injured. So when he returns, he's going to get a big babyface pop. But if you bring him back at the Rumble, is there a chance that Mania the fans could be rooting for Seth ever so slightly more? I think it's possible.
The other thing I didn't really think about is it is an LA crowd at Mania. And by comparison, that would be a crowd that I think would, the classic babyface that is Cody, they'd be maybe more inclined to root for more of a, that factor too. I think twofold might be just as big of a problem. I also think Cody navigated the mixed reactions in AEW about as well as he could, given the scenario twofold with his contract negotiations. And so I think that's a problem he's going to be able to avoid in WWE because they kind of learned from, he really did book himself in a corner with that audience, knowing that he could only go so far and that the TNT title was really the only thing you could chase the way they had booked him, unless they were going to do some kind of, I think, thing that would disappoint the audience to get him back into the world title picture.
Yeah.
And I think that had more to do with the crowd reactions than necessarily the overall thought on Cody. Like I'm not sure even some of the fans that booed Cody during that time disliked Cody. There's probably similar people that cheered him when he debuted in Dallas, right? I don't see that as something that is going to pop up again right away in WWE unless he ends up in sort of a position of authority, or maybe they have him carry the belt for too long as a babyface and that gets stale. I think that's where you could run into trouble. If you put the belt on Cody, he brings back the winged eagle, he carries it for 6 months or so, and then it gets not boring, but it gets mundane a little bit, the way it kind of happened to Super Cena.
It happens to every babyface.
Right? Yeah, it's really hard to be a defending champion babyface.
Yeah.
That's a very difficult thing to do.
Which is hilarious. It used to be the opposite way in the really, really early days of wrestling. It used to be babyface. Well, even before that, babyfaces would hold it for a long, long time, and the heels
Sammartino.
would be heels would be the transitional champion. But it was a different age then. But it's very interesting, how it's evolved. And we got a shout out here to Clark's mum after her appearance on the show.
Will do, Grace. Absolutely.
And somebody's saying hi in the comments here. Hello, welcome to the podcast. And now we're going to get on to the final topic of the show, right? And it's going to be a bit of a long topic, this, right? And you briefly touched on it earlier, but last night, the Judgment Day had the push of their lifetimes on Raw. It was the only good thing from the show, in my opinion. Basically, the main storyline in the first half of, well, not the first half of the show, but the first half of the second half of the show was that Dominic Mysterio has been freed. Free Dominic has come true. He has been freed from jail, and he is a new man. He has seen some things which no man should ever have to see. And they hype him all up. He does a Miz TV segment, and he's telling these stories. And the Judgment Day, being all supportive around him and all that. And then Miz drops the line, "But I heard you were only in county jail for a few hours." And then Priest just loses his mind. He's like, "No, he was, your information's wrong." And the Miz, "Well, yeah, my information might be wrong, blah, blah, blah."
The one when he goes, "That's $1,000 off-white button down you're wearing." It's my favorite line from the Miz last night. I laughed so hard because he had it buttoned up to here, and then he had the bandana and stuff. And that's $1,000 off-white button down you're wearing. Like,
it was just this stuff. I know we talked about
and the fake teardrop. I was losing my mind laughing so hard. I'm sorry. It was one of the funniest.
honestly, right, we talked about this on Christmas Eve when he did that original segment. We talked about how great it was.
Oh,
Honestly, this storyline is the most interesting I've been in Dominic Mysterio since it's happened. But anyway, he does this fantastic Miz TV segment, and then Priest goes at the end of it. He's had enough. He's had enough of Miz, and he goes, "Me and Finn, we're now going to win the tag team turmoil." And the Judgment Day just run through everybody in the tag team turmoil. Halfway through, Balor gets injured. Dominic Mysterio replaces him. And Dominic Mysterio gets the roll up and wins the match. They beat every single team in the Raw tag team division who was in this match. And they're now facing the Bloodline.
It blew my mind. They gave him the old originally, if you remember, Heyman pitched that CM Punk would eliminate everybody in the December to Dismember Elimination Chamber in 2006. And then they actually did it with Shayna Baszler, and I believe they also did it with Brock. They essentially did that in a gauntlet match with the Judgment Day, but with an injury angle in the middle. And
I don't know how I feel about it, honestly.
I'm not going to lie. I'm confused. I've been complaining for weeks about the Judgment Day are supposed to be a huge threatening heel faction, but I'm only scared of Rhea Ripley. And it was an improvement upon that, but I don't get for a team that's supposed to look so strong, it was like they ran through everybody, but they didn't even look as strong as I would have expected for running through everybody. It was like they ran through everybody on paper. You know what I mean? It's one of those.
I completely understand it. But I don't have to call you up for one thing. How do you not think Dominic Mysterio is threatening? He sees things which no man should see.
Honestly,
you can't even imagine it.
I love this
saw in those few hours.
as well as anybody, but it's the dictionary definition of really, really high quality bad acting in the sense of it's so entertaining because it's so tongue in cheek and funny. And you can tell even Dom knows it.
Yeah.
Even though he's leaning into it, Dom knows how funny it is, and it's a joke, and it's a dang good one because I find every segment entertaining. I think it's the best thing they've done with the Judgment Day. That's not necessarily what I thought would be the direction Judgment Day wise.
I didn't either. I don't think anybody did
ever, but it is oddly the best thing coming out of that group with big names stars in it, right? Finn Balor is that's the first Universal Champion.
And he's really leaning into the comedy now. He's really, really leaning into it.
It's fascinating to me, but I'm also impressed by it because I was kind of down on them as a group, a month and a half ago. I think we need to pump the brakes a little on the Eddie Guerrero stuff with Dominic. I think, I get the comparisons, I get the history and all of that. I think I've said this before in conversation with you, to have to be compared to both Ray and Eddie is so much of a burden to be saddled with. As much as I really like the mullet, the Eddie parallels with the Rhea stuff, it gives you the twofold comparison thing. You're doubling down the pressure, and I don't know necessarily that in the long run that's going to benefit Dominic, because it's just putting his early work under such a microscope that other people during this phase of their career aren't going to be under that type of microscope by the nature of the association with two of the most famous Hall of Famers of all time, one of which is your father, the other of which is essentially family, right? That part of it is the only thing that I fear. But again, this is so entertaining. I can't wait to see the next one. So it's like,
I get that. And for people who are interested in this discussion, right, we literally spoke about this exact thing on the December 26th edition of the daily broadcast. And at that time, I explained, like, I think this is honestly the best thing for Dominic, this storyline, because yes, you're going to now need to take him to put him as a main event. You're now going to have a couple of years building him up to be something serious. But the fact of the matter is, you've got him out of his father's shadow and you made him interesting, which was something he was not before. So while you are going to have to rebuild him slightly now, you've avoided you got rid of the biggest issue. So I honestly think that it's fine, and he'll be fine as long as he continues to improve in the ring. And most importantly, improve on the mic. But currently, this storyline's been fantastic. him in jail. It was some of the funniest segments I've seen. The promo on Raw last week, which I don't even think we spoke about, of him being in like just a white room, and I think he was pretending he was still in jail, but he was blatant that he wasn't. And it was hilarious. And now him coming out and pretending, making up all these stories, it's absolutely brilliant. And Miz played his role perfect last night on Miz TV.
The fake teardrop gets me, and then the other line too that got me, Allison, is when he did the snitches get stitches.
Yes,
I lost it. That's snitches get stitches, and Miz is like, okay.
and then Vincent calming him down. He's like, "It's okay, you're out now.
You're out now. Oh yeah, I forgot. Balor was as good as anybody when he's rubbing his shoulders. He's like, "It's okay, buddy. You're out now. It's gonna be okay."
Different character Finn's playing as well. He's really leaning into it, and good for him for doing that.
Absolutely.
And we got a comment here: should Judgment Day versus Usos be better built up for the Rumble? The match sounds interesting, and maybe they could do a heel versus heel, but fans decide who to cheer for. I mean, that could be.
I actually don't mind that. That's not a bad call if you give it a couple weeks to kind of marinate. And my only fear would be that I think the Judgment Day as a whole, right, would be squashed by Bloodline because of the numbers advantage outside of the Rhea Ripley factor. And you would make anybody in the Bloodline look bad if Rhea was the one to kind of get something over on them. So my only fear with that type of a build all the way to the Rumble would be that you would bury Judgment Day or make the Bloodline look weaker than you should.
Here's the thing, though. Last night, and Kobe sent me a text about this, last night they said it was for the Raw tag titles.
Right, they did.
And if they're clarifying that, then it's basically a foregone conclusion that the Judgment Day are winning.
Right.
Because they must be separating them if that's what they're doing, unless they're doing a swerve, but that's just a bit unnecessary, I think. But yeah, I could honestly see the Judgment Day winning.
No, they explicitly said the Raw titles multiple times on the show, Ben. I can confirm that because I did watch that part of it, especially. And I watched the whole show, but I was definitely locked in during that part. And the other thing is, so I get that, of course, on paper it makes sense for the Judgment Day to then win to split them up, but how do you keep the Judgment Day away from Roman Reigns? Given the way that story's been told, this is where I'm like, you're kind of booking yourself into a corner here.
In fairness, you can keep them away from him very easily. Roman doesn't turn up on Raw.
Right.
And the Judgment Day are only on Raw. And I think this is how they're going to split the titles off him. I think Adam Pearce is getting more and more frustrated about Roman Reigns not showing up on Raw. I think that's what they're going to, I think they're just going to say, the Bloodline are coming wreaking havoc every week on Raw, right?
He's going to strip
But Roman Reigns isn't there. So I think what he's going to do is, I think he's just going to say, okay, we're introducing a new title on Raw. And then at WrestleMania, when they do Reigns versus The Rock, I think they're going to put the Roman Reigns' two titles together into a new title design. Right. And then we have the new Raw title, whatever it is, which has already been established by this point. And presumably Seth's the champion facing Royal Rumble winner Cody. That's my personal prediction.
Same.
I think that's how they're going to do it. And I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. And it's an exciting time right now. It's difficult to predict. But yeah, I mean, do you think that's the way to split the titles?
For the tag titles, I'm more nervous than I am for basically the blueprint we've kind of laid out for the world titles. I think the world titles, we have a better idea with the Cody and Seth stuff. The tag titles, I'm a little nervous about making either side look, making the Bloodline look weak. And not really addressing it. Like, Roman should be real upset if it ends up being the Usos dropping even just the Raw belts and keeping the SmackDown belts.
I think they'll lose both.
Judgment Day. I think they might
lose Raw to Judgment Day and then the SmackDown to somebody else. But the reason I think both,
I think so too. But that's my issue, Ben, is I think when they lose the Raw first, it's hard not to have them look weak without Reigns basically scorching them. And I don't necessarily think that's a story that needs to be told along the way to Mania.
No, that's the thing. I think it does. Because I think that's exactly how The Rock's going to come in. I think that they're going to drop both of them basically within the same week.
Okay.
And then Reigns is going to lose it. The Bloodlines, just go into absolute chaos. Adam Pearce has already introduced a new title, meaning that Roman Reigns is no longer champion of two brands, now just SmackDown.
Yeah.
The Rock shows up. He's been sent by the elders to sort things out. And I mean, you can introduce, Tama Tonga if he's available at that point, I guess, or something else. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm presuming Hikuleo's contract's probably not done if he's in a loser leaves Japan match and Jay White's losing.
Right.
But this is the thing; it's so unpredictable right now, and we love wrestling when it's unpredictable. My only thing I'm saying is, please, Fightful, do not spoil who signs where. Let it happen naturally, right? Because it's annoying. Fightful are highly reliable.
Just keep it behind the paywall. I'm fine with that.
No, I'm honestly, I'm not. I mean,
are you not?
Great journalist, Sean Rossap, right? Great journalist. But that's the issue. He's such a great journalist that he's so reliable that when he breaks a story, he just spoils it. And I'm fine if it's the business stuff. I'm fine with it, like today's thing that Jay White is leaving. Might be leaving New Japan. His contract's nearly expiring. That's a business thing. That's behind the scenes. That's fine. When you're spoiling, for example, who was it? Bryan Danielson is signing with AEW, or CM Punk signing with AEW. They both it's just absolutely it infuriates me. It just ruins the fun of the surprise.
I hear you.
And you could say, behind a paywall, it's fine. Well, no, because we know in this day and age,
that's true. Everyone's just gonna get it.
Yeah. It doesn't work. It's true. I think Fightful are actually harming themselves in the long term by having less people interested in wrestling by spoiling the big scoops. But again, that's nothing. That's not an insult at all to anybody there. They're super reliable, which is the issue. Yeah.
You know which team I'm on, so you're good. For sure.
But yeah, anyway, guys, I think today's show has been an absolute blast. Thank you to everybody who's joined. We've had a lot of viewers throughout today. And thank you, Clark, for joining me. It's been an absolute great show. And we're going to be back tomorrow. I'm not going to be back tomorrow, but it's me, Clark, and Chaos. 8 p.m. UK time, 12 p.m. Pacific time.
Pacific, yep. 3 Eastern in the States.
Nice.
That's 2 Central, which I guess makes it 1 Mountain, and then 9 a.m. Hawaiian. So
there we are.
There's the lineup.
No excuse for not watching live tomorrow then, guys.
Exactly.
We'll see you all then. Thank you for joining us.
Have a good one.